All right, welcome back to another Side Note, the podcast dedicated to underground electronic dance music and all things related. As always, I am your host, Nick. This episode, pleased to introduce everyone to Forestbump, partner in Coalesce. So we had Jay Gill on last week, also partner in Coalesce, and now we have Forestbump, another one of the forefathers. And if you don't know, Coalesce is I haven't been yet, but from what I've seen, looks like really fucking sick New Year's party, kind of like Moon Tribe vibes out in the desert.
Yeah, so basically when I started Coalesce, it was kind of like I was trying to find a middle ground between like Moon Tribe and Desert Hearts, because Desert Hearts was like the one where I went to, and so basically the last Desert Hearts they had in the fall, it was 2015. I came back from that and was like, yo, we gotta be doing something like this. Like, well, I know too many people that DJ, like too many people that like could be doing something like this. So I basically hit up my uncle, got his speakers, because he used to do promotional gigs for car dealerships, basically. So like, I basically got his two little PA speakers, rented a generator, and funny story with that, actually, I ended up going to Home Depot with my Toyota Corolla, trying to pick up the generator, threw it in my trunk, realized it didn't fit, had to toe strap it over the trunk to try and get it there. Ended up driving home that night. It was the night before we went out to the desert, so I drove home that night with the generator in my trunk. Ended up being too much weight for my car. Ended up popping my tire in my Corolla by the time I got off the freeway. Dude. So yeah, a lot of lessons learned the hard way. That's kind of the theme of a lot of the things I do, unfortunately. And but I mean, that's kind of how you learn, you know. Yeah,
man. So I guess talk about kind of Coalesce 1. Like, so you had gone to DH, but what kind of motivated you to actually do something, and how did it all come together? Like for that first one.
So that one actually wasn't Coalesce. That one was actually Conundrum.
Okay.
That was the year before Coalesce. I threw one that was called Conundrum. It was my first Desert Renegade. Okay. Basically, it was only like 50 people. I had a group of friends. They built like this A-frame that kind of went around, and then they put white sheets and tapestries on it, and brought a bunch of paint out. So
and like how long were you like thinking about doing it before you did it?
It was 2 months between Desert Hearts and that New Year's that I had to plan that.
So coming out of DH, you were kind of like, oh, I want to do something. I'm definitely gonna do something.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So basically, I had like a party that my first time playing was at some random desert party, and they weren't doing their thing. So basically, I was like, okay, I'm gonna do this. Like, I want to do. Like, have all my friends together for New Year's, because I don't want to go out to the clubs, like another, you know what I mean? Like, I was over that. So.
And where were you living at the time? Like, what part of California?
At that I'm assuming
point, California.
Yeah, I was in California. I was actually in Humboldt at that point. I drove down 12 hours to go to Desert Hearts from Humboldt.
Oh shit.
I was I was gonna go to Escape from Wonderland the weekend before with all my friends. Ended up getting an email from Desert Hearts saying, oh, we have a volunteer spot available for you if you still want to come. I was like, oh crap, okay, let me see if my car is even gonna work, you know, like ended up like getting it checked out, getting the okay. So I drove down there, met up with only one of my friends, Nikki, and me and her experienced Desert Hearts together for our first time, you know. Sick. And I came back from that and was just like, okay, like
we gotta do this.
We gotta do this. Desert thing is like the thing, you know, and so. Yeah, I did Conundrum, and then
2 months of planning, and so you're looking into sound. Like, what other infrastructure did you have to pull together that first time?
That one was since it was my first go at it, it was pretty basic. It was like I think it was only like 5 or 6 of us DJing. You know what I mean? It was like. It was me, 3 of my friends, and then we had like 2 other people that were like separate from our group that we had out to DJ basically. Okay. And it was very, very minimal, you know, like it was.
I mean, 50 people is still like pretty sizable.
It was decent, you know, but it was still like, you know, you met everyone that was there kind of a thing, and that was like the cool part about it, you know. It wasn't just like a bunch of strangers that you're just kind of randomly like dancing around. You
right.
know,
And was it like private land, or was it like true renegade?
Yeah, it was true renegade.
Okay.
It was out in Mecca. There was a spot that my buddies had thrown like one of their parties on, and I hit him up and was like, "Is this your property?" You know, he's like, "No, it's just our spot. You know, like just make sure you don't burn it out." And it was like, "All right, you know, perfect." So.
Cool. And then I guess aesthetically, like in terms of sound and stuff, were you just kind of trying to go for a similar kind of Moon Tribe DH vibe, or like, where does your sound come from?
Well, yeah, I mean, eventually it became that, you know, like Conundrum was kind of more just like, okay, like let's just play music. I was like, dude, if we have to play off of like some KRKs, like computer speakers off of, you know what I mean? Like I don't care as long as my friends are together. And then after that, it became, you know, Coalesce, which went from just the little Conundrum crew to being a collaborative event between 7 different collectives. Okay. And I had reached out to, you know, all these different people, like our buddies, Fabio, Samson, Phil, You Are Here is the crew. They had their party in March after I did Conundrum. And they actually bought their land for that one. Those crazy kids all, you know, pitched in like $500 each or something like that.
Really? Wow.
To just buy a piece of land so they didn't have to, you know, worry about finding it, like renting it.
Dude, my friends have talked about that for so long. Like, oh, we should just buy like a plot of land so we can throw parties there.
They pay $15 a year in property tax. So it's like, you know, like if you have the money to invest in it and like.
Wait, this is in NorCal?
This is in the Mojave.
Okay.
Yeah. But I mean, I meant that be accurate with the numbers exactly, but it was like 5 of them that pitched in like a certain amount of money each just to like buy the land, you know. Right. And since it was theirs, they offered to, you know, let us use it for Coalesce, and I was the home of Coalesce up until this past one.
So basically. like the next year after Conundrum, is that when you did the first Coalesce?
Yeah,
so like a full year in between.
2015 into 16 was my first Desert Party Conundrum, and then 2016 into 17 was Coalesce, and that was when it was like, okay, now we're actually doing this.
Oh, so they were both New Year's too.
Yeah, exactly. I've only done New Year's Renegades.
Yeah, it's cold, dude, man.
Yeah, I mean, the first one we had a full-on storm that came through. It was literally the gnarliest weather I've ever seen still to this day.
Like it rained on you guys?
It dumped. It was a full, like, so basically I was actually like changing my shoes at the point, and I was like sitting in my tent, like had my feet out. All of a sudden it starts raining into my tent, and I'm like, oh crap, like my tent's kind of faced the same way as the stage, you know what I mean? And we had issues with the sound that year where the guy had to end up coming out. He didn't stay there to watch his sound system, and
so you hired a guy like
the first Coalesce actually finally was like, okay, like we can't just, you know, borrow my uncle's speakers. That's not going to suffice for an actual party. So ended up like renting a sound system the next year. The dude chopped it off with some dude that didn't know how to actually run audio. So they ended up having an amp that wasn't powerful enough for their sub. And so it blew out the subs completely. Guy had to come out at like 5 a.m. or something like that. You know, I had one of my DJs calling him just like, you're supposed to do this. We paid all this money, blah, blah, blah. You know, he actually just got back from running sound for like $1 or something like that, you know. So he's like an audio engineer. He knows what he's doing. And the guy's like, you know, not stoked about it. Ends up driving back out to the desert after dropping off the sound system. And he's like, yeah, I'm just going to have to, you know, pull this out, and there's nothing I can do. But this kind of,
you had the party with no subs then?
Yeah, we just had tops at that point.
Oh man.
Yeah, it got to that point.
That pains me to hear.
Yeah, no. So I mean, this is all. I mean, like I said, like a lot of my lessons I learned the hard way with a lot of what I've done. You know, unfortunately, but it was cool though, because like, you know, we had 2 easy ups that were where the subs were, and so once it started raining, it was basically like March of the Penguins. There was like probably like 200 people like huddled under either easy up, just like dancing around. You know what I mean? I roll up and I'm like, this is the coolest thing ever. You know what I mean? Another lesson learned the hard way. I was working gate for like the first 2 years by myself, just because I didn't have anyone else help me out. I was just, you know, I was like, it was a second thought until I got there, and so like. You know, it was a lot of people would come up to me like, oh, when are you going to come enjoy your party? And I was like, you know, honestly, I'm having a blast just seeing who's coming to my party. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, I'd be sitting at the door with like a bottle of wine, just like, hey, what's up? Yeah. You know what I mean? Just
like you built it and people came, right? I feel like it's got to be like a special feeling. Like, 100%. Oh, people are showing up.
Exactly. It was like, it was a bummer that, you know, like I couldn't like really, you know, get to wander around and do what else. But, you know, I've gotten to the point where like I've done enough work and we've established a team to where that's not necessarily a concern anymore. But
so, you know, I heard from Josh, like clearly the infrastructure has gotten more and more like complex over the years. You know, over that time, like what are some other like key lessons you feel like you've learned? It sounds like year one, you know, you definitely learned a lesson on sound. Like what other kind of stuff?
Yeah, well,
like
I mean, to finish the story with the whole storm, you know what I mean? So the rain was coming in sideways, right? And so we ended up, I was like, okay, like it's coming down on the DJ equipment. We gotta shut this down. You know what I mean?
Okay, yeah. And like the easy up wasn't enough.
No,
okay.
Well, so we had tarps on either side of the easy up, and then the one opening side was where the rain was coming in.
It's like,
but it started coming down so hard that we had like 16 people holding down this easy up, and then we had like 2 people. So another one of our buddies brought this yurt out that he built. And it was so crazy that the door got ripped off of it. And so somehow the door ended up at the stage. And so I had like 2 buddies that were holding this door, like to make sure that the rain wasn't coming in. And like, yeah, it was probably like an hour of us just like trying to like hold it in. I was like running around the property trying to get a car to like put the amp in so we didn't do any damage because the guy left again, you know what I mean? I was like, I don't want to be responsible for like a rain damage, you know what I mean? When there's already this damage done to the subs, you know? But yeah, eventually it was a whole fiasco of just like everyone in panic mode. And then eventually it became... Well, eventually I realized, you know, I'm not going to let this party end, you know what I mean? I remember the day before the party started, my buddy who actually brought out the decks, he bought those decks brand new, literally plugged them in his garage to make sure they turned on, put them back in the box and brought them out to the desert. And I was like, dude, like, let me rent like equipment so you're not bringing out your new equipment.
Right.
And he's like, nah, dude, we got to break it in somehow. And like, so the day before we didn't have the sound system. We just had my buddy's little jam box and then like the generator. So we were just like playing off of that just to have fun, you know what I mean? And since the amp for the speakers were already put away, I remember that we had the jam box. So I was like, wait, we can still keep this party going.
So you salvaged the party with a jam box?
With a jam box. It was honestly, like, you had to be there, but, like, anyone that was there, like, still talks about it so highly just because, like, it was, well, so it was one easy up that we were all under, like, once the rain came down, and then one of my buddies walked up, he's like, oh, I have an easy up I haven't set up, and, like, some new tarps. So we, like, took the one easy up that the DJ equipment was under, extended it so it was like another easy up behind it with a bunch of tarps on the side of it, and then had the DJ like playing facing the wall. So it was basically like the boiler room hobby where it was like everyone behind the DJ just like raging it and like
salvaging it.
Dude, it was the best. Like seriously, like I had so many people, still to this day, people come up to me and talk about how that was like one of the most fun they've ever had, you know what I mean?
It's all about the ups and downs, right? It's like, I'm sure at one point that night, everyone thought, okay, it's over. Like this shit's dead. Right?
I walked up to I ran up to every single car window. There's people just like hanging in their car. I would just go knock on their window and say, rain or shine, bitches, party's not over. Like, hey, let's go, you know? Like,
it's so good.
Wasn't going to let it end. And that's kind of the whole, you know, spirit of the renegade, you know? It's like you make the most out of it, and that's very much where the Coalesce energy comes from.
Oh, man, I love that story. And like, yeah, even after all that, you're like, let's do it again next year.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that was like, comes back to that whole learning lessons the hard way. Right. It's like, okay, well, now we know we need to like be ready if it rains, you know? We need to have the structures to like make sure everything's rainproof, you know what I mean? And then it's like, same thing with the sound system. Like the next year with the sound system, we ended up doing like a Frankenstein system where it was like, I had 3 different friends who had different speakers for sound systems, and we just kind of daisy chained them all together. So it was like one friend brought a sub, another friend brought a sub and 2 tops, and then another friend brought another 2 speakers, and then like
how many stages do you have? Is it one?
We only do one stage.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. We kind of do that. Was like the whole. The one stage, one vibe for Desert Hearts was kind of inspiration for us.
Do you still do that? Because I feel like you have like a ton of artists on the lineup. Yeah, I guess over 3 days, like
it's like 50,
a lot of people cycling through.
50-something DJs. Yeah.
50-something DJs cycling through over 3 days on one stage.
4 days, 3 nights. Yeah. It starts on noon on the 29th and then goes till noon on the 1st. So
that's unbelievable. I mean, I feel like you're probably in terms of like the number of days, like one of the longer running like renegades, right? Moon Tribe's always like one
yeah,
night.
I mean, the Moon Tribe is at like anniversary parties where they'll do like 3 days, but yeah, they're usually, you know, 1 night, 2 nights for sure. We used to be 2 nights for the first 2 years, and then it was like, I know too many people that are wanting to play this, so let's just do it for 3 nights.
That's, I mean, like, so the crew that I roll with, like, we throw a few renegades. I mean, they've been doing it for like 20 years now, and like there have been years where we do like 2 nights, and I'm like, I can't. Like now it's just like 1 night. But so, I mean, man, that's impressive in terms of like the effort, but I'm sure like it's super worthwhile. I'm sure like, you know, I've talked about it on the show before, like the movie Groove. Have you seen that?
I haven't, but I was actually listening to you talk
like
about
the
it
nod, like people come up to you, like thank you so much.
No,
like,
100%.
So
That's what it really like. I've honestly never made money from any parties. I've gone thousands and thousands of dollars into debt every single time I throw a party, except for this last one. Shout out to my team. They really took it upon themselves to be like, okay, dude, you're not going into debt throwing these parties anymore. You know, that's another lesson I learned the hard way. Don't throw parties without money, because you're just gonna keep digging a hole for yourself. And
you should talk one of my previous guests, Mama J, shout out. She's all about like making sure her shit is profitable. So I don't know like what she's doing to like optimize for that, but I don't know, maybe she's got some tips she can share.
Yeah, I'm money's not a focus for me.
Right, of course. But you don't want to be in the hole, right? So
been more just focused on that priority of just the community, you know what I mean? Obviously, you know, it's not fun losing money, but if I lose, the way I've always looked at it is it's an investment. It's not, I've never thought of it as I'm losing money. I'm looking at it as I've just been investing money in the community and putting other people on, you know?
That's awesome, man.
So,
so over the years, like what's changed? So the first one was 16, 17?
16, 17, right? Yeah. So the next year we finally had shade structures, but funny enough, we didn't really like, there's always been a thing where we know what's coming out to Coalesce, but we haven't necessarily known how it's going to end up being set up until like these last 2.
Do you know like this many tops, this many subs, etc.?
Yeah. So for the first 3 years, it was like, okay, like we have like this shade structure, this coming out, but we never like looked at the layout of the land beforehand to be like, okay, let's set up the sound system here and let's set up this here, you know what I mean? So like the first year was just an easy up, you know what I mean? And then second year I had a buddy, shout out Chris Thatcher. He used to work for this guy who would do these big shade structures for Burning Man, basically. And the dude like invested all the money into buying it and stuff like that. And then he wasn't able to pay my buddy to work for him because he had spent the money to invest in it in the first place. So when it came around to Coalesce, the guy was like, you can take as many shade structures as you want for as long as you want. You know what I mean? Wow. It's basically kind of like a thank you for the work kind of a thing. You know what I mean? So we brought out like 3 shade structures. Ended up setting up like a big one, set up a small one, and then somehow ended up setting up an easy up in front of the small one. Still, that was the stage instead of actually putting it in the shade structure to be the stage. I still don't know how that happened, but yeah, by the 3rd year, we finally were like, okay, we only need one of these. Like, we can just put the DJs under there. You know what I mean? Ended up getting a small one, which like wasn't necessarily big enough. You know, if you're in the corner and you're as tall as me, you're kind of having to hunch over just to be able to fit in there. But yeah, then the 4th year we had the Geodome, which was a lot of work setting up.
Oh man, I've heard those are like insanely difficult.
Like I did not think it was going to be as hard as it was.
Oh man, everyone talks about like what pain, like major pains in the ass those domes are.
Well, and it's like a thing too where like for the one we had, I don't know if it's like for everyone's, but the one he had, like it was like you had to have like certain pole lengths in certain positions, and like the graphic he had to like understand where the layout was, like it's like only
worse than IKEA. That,
you know, like there's like I looked at it and I was like, nah, dude, like, I'm not gonna try this. Like,
oh man.
But yeah, so it ended up taking us like 6 to 8 hours to do that, and then.
So are you arriving like a couple days before then?
So normally, like I've actually been lucky enough to where I've only had to spend 1 day beforehand. Okay. So like normally it was like, so like the first 2 to 3 years I would show up like basically the night before the day before. So I would just like show up to like set up my tent, fall asleep there so I could wake up on the property and then get after it. So like basically like a normal Coalesce would be me waking up first and then turning on Atomic Dog and digging out bushes so people had places to camp. That was like a ritual for a couple of years. It was like always had to start out with some funk in the morning. And
wait, and is it always in the same plot in the Mojave that your friends? Okay.
Yeah, it was until this last one.
Okay.
It's kind of at this point there's like a lot of the desert parties that were happening during COVID. They were just using like some of the public land out there and stuff like that. You know what I mean? So there's been some issues where like the porta potty company actually put like a radius like right in that spot in the desert where they're like, we're not bringing out porta potties to here. You know what I mean?
Oh, interesting.
And so it's like
because they know
stuff
it's
like that.
They know it's Renegade, so they're like, oh, it has to be private.
I'm assuming like either that or like maybe one of these parties did a bunch of damage to the toilets. I don't know the whole. Basically, like if we were to throw a party on there, there's a whole like extra, like hurdle of trying to figure some logistics out.
Got it. So like the most recent one, was that public or like on?
No, it was a private property. Luckily, so our buddy Milo, shout out Milo, he knows this guy who ended up. He's like some burner guy that ended up buying the property from some other people, and they used to do like rock concerts out there or something like that. But it was like a wooden stage that they had, so they have like a gate that they started building around it and stuff like that.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, I was like, okay, this is pretty perfect. It was kind of tucked into like this hill too, so like we were pretty protected from the weather. Like I had my roommate like drove out like on the first night, and it was like pouring rain in Pomona. You know what I mean? And he comes out to the desert, and it's like not a cloud in sight. Basically the clouds kept hitting the hills, and then they would like dissipate around it, and
awesome.
It was almost like the clouds were like, sorry,
there's a party
don't
going on
want to bother you guys, you know what I mean? So like, we were super blessed all weekend. I think it only rained like one time for a little bit, you know what I mean? But obviously, from the monsoon experience, that we know to always keep everything rainproof, so it was no big deal.
Yeah, man. Like I was sending around pictures from your website to my friends, and I was like, dude, like look at what they're doing. It's fucking amazing, and like my friends are like, dude, this is like the dream. It's the dream, right? Like you have like I think you used a drone or something to get like a sky.
Yeah, we had
like all the tents and stuff.
Yeah, we've had 2 different people over the past 2 years just randomly bring out a drone, and then they were just like, oh, here's footage for you guys. You know what I mean? And it was like, okay, well, like actually this last year we booked a guy, Ryan. Shout out Ryan. He's an amazing videographer, photographer. But yeah, he came out for the last night, and so he came out for like the peak of the party. You know what I mean? And was able to get shots then. So. Super lucky for that. And like,
what's like your attendance look like these days?
Usually, normally it's around 300.
Okay.
Like it's been that way pretty steadily.
Got it.
We have people that will always want to go. We have some very diehard people that that's their
300 is a big party,
definitely,
right? Especially for the desert.
It's a great size for sure. It's like it's very intimate. That's kind of the goal. It's like we don't want to have just like a bunch of randoms out there, what I mean? Or we'd rather have like a bunch of really cool, genuine people all enjoying each other's presence. So.
And let's talk about music. Like what I'm sure, musically you've had to kind of curate because you bring in so many DJs. Like what is like your guiding philosophy as far as goes?
I very much just look for, I know Josh mentioned it, like the desert sound,
Right.
There's like a kind of big variety when it comes to that, you know what I mean? From like the deep play tech to like, there's some people that play like some like gnarly 150 techno out in the desert, you know what I mean? And it's like,
so it's kind of anything goes as long as it kind of like has
fits,
that kind of like
exactly.
deserty,
not
like
too mainstream,
right?
Like, you know,
a little
what I
bit
mean?
psychedelic vibe.
Yeah, exactly. And then there's like sometimes we'll have like people play like funky house music during the day, you know what I mean? Which is like one of my favorite things at Desert Hearts is those day parties, like there's sometimes those like super upbeat, happy, house music sets are way better than the like ripping nighttime techno sets,
Dude, I still have not been to a DH, and I wanted to go this year, but I'm not gonna be able to make it. Are you?
Yeah, I'll be there next weekend for sure. I've gone to everyone for like the last 7 years. So.
Oh wow.
Yeah, that's like my one party that it's like kind of must go to. Honestly,
do you like know those guys at all? Okay.
No, it's honestly like when I told you like that first time I went and I just went by myself.
Yep.
I was literally sitting on my tent and I was like, dude, this is one of the coolest things. I already knew it was like one of the coolest things, and then like getting to experience it, it's just like that very community vibe and very much just like I don't know, like free for all, like zoo kind of vibes at the same time. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like there's nothing really like it.
I mean, I'm sure they would love to know that like they've inspired something as like big and well planned as what you're doing. And I'm sure like other folks have taken inspiration from them as well. But I mean, that's crazy to have that kind of impact, right? Because it not only do people go to an event like that and just have an amazing time, but they get inspired to do similar stuff. And it just like feeds the community and the ecosystem, which is awesome.
And that's kind of where it transfers into us too. It's like, I've always like, part of it is like, putting in on these, bedroom DJs that might not get their foot in the door, you know what I mean? But a big part of it too was like, I didn't really know how much like I had to drive to DJ until I got in front of a crowd, you know what I mean? Sometimes you don't really realize until you get a bunch of people dancing to your music how much this is like something you're passionate about and like want to just keep on pursuing, you know what I mean? So
by the way, your shit is dope. I was telling you, I was listening to like your mixes before you got here. I really appreciate like, there's definitely like, you're right, like a desert sensibility to it, because it's not one thing. It's there's a lot of variety within your sound. I noticed, like it's kind of like a house and techno vibe, but it's kind of everywhere within that.
Yeah, I always I very much curate my sets to whatever party or if I'm doing like a mix for a series or something like that.
Right.
Like I did one for like Cosmic Spa in Long Beach, and that one I kind of did more like minimal and house vibes or instead of like. More recently after the pandemic specifically, like I kind of was trying to have a bigger range with my sound with individual sets, you know what I mean? Because like a lot of times, like early in my DJ career, I'd like pigeonhole myself to be in like 1 to 2 BPM range where I'm like only playing like 124 or 125 for like my whole set, you know what I mean? Just to like
I've been there.
Stick in that groove, you know what I mean? So, but more recently, it's like okay, now I'll like start a set at like 124 and build it to like 175 so I can play some drum and bass, you know what I mean? And then bring it back down and like just have a whole journey of sound with that,
I mean, I think what stuck out to me is like the word that came to mind was rave. Like it feels very ravey in that it's all encompassing and it's not just like, oh, I'm only gonna play tech or I'm only gonna play tech house. It's just like we're here for a good time. Let's do like all of it.
That's that's kind of what I go for. It's like the way I kind of term it more than like ravey is more like dance floor, you know what I mean? It's like stuff that's gonna grab your attention, make you move, like make you feel something on a dance floor. That's kind of where I'm going for,
So I guess it's a good segue in terms of, like I asked all the guests, like, what was your intro to the music, to rave? Like, how did you end up learning to DJ or wanting to become a DJ, etc.?
So my first, actually, I'll backtrack this. So actually, my stepbrother, he was kind of the one who really got me into it. We kind of both listened to electronic music, but then he started like raving at probably like 08, 09 or something like that. And he would like come home and like be like, oh, like I just saw this DJ, and I would go on what's it called? Like it wasn't LimeWire, but it was like uTorrent, So I would like, he would give me an artist, be like, oh, I just saw like Infected Mushroom or like Paul Van Dyke, and I would go and download every single thing from any artist he would name, you know what I mean? We had like.
So 08, 09, that was like a time when like I feel like Deadmau5 was kind of coming up, Cascade was kind of coming up. Yeah, like what were some of the artists in the mix?
Yeah, it was well, so basically like it was all that, Infected Mushroom was one of my favorites before I really started getting into it.
Dude, I still never seen them. Like I hear so much.
I've only seen them once, and it was pretty cool. But like by the time I actually saw them, I was kind of into other things at the time, you know what I mean? Got it. Yeah, I saw them do like their live show, and that was super unique. You know what I mean? But
just like trippy mindfuck as well.
Yeah, exactly. But when I started actually getting into it, like my first event was actually the first Beyond Wonderland in 2010.
Okay. Shout out to Insomniac.
Yeah, but it was actually my 16th birthday. Okay. And I saw.
Wait, could you get in? Like it was all ages.
So that EDC that year was the one where that underage chick had passed, and they changed it to 18 plus. Okay. So I convinced my mom to buy me a ticket because I saw Caspa was on the lineup. Dude. And it's so funny. She was like, she's Christian, like kind of conservative, and so
Thanks,
she
Mom. Shout out to Mom.
Shout out Mom. But it was just so funny because she goes to drop us off, and she sees all the girls in tutus and pasties, and she's like, oh, this is what I'm dropping.
This is where you're going. Yeah.
And our friend was supposed to pick us up. That was when it still went till like 4 a.m. or something like that. And my mom's like, so you're gonna get picked up at like midnight, right? And I'm like, well, I'm not driving, you know, it's my friend's mom's driving. And my friend's moms are like at the casino in San Bernardino, and they're like, we're not driving just you home to come pick up our kids at 4 a.m., you know what I mean? So yeah, I get home at like 5 a.m. My mom's just like, yeah, this is not a good look for you, you know, like, but
all right, so this was still at the NOS?
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So it was like I went to see like Caspa, I saw like AC Slater, I was into like trance at the time, saw like Paul Van Dyke, I think Pendulum was playing, I was into drum and bass too, so yeah, I got to see like all the
these
DJs,
are like some like classic names from that era.
Yeah, exactly. Like Pendulum was another one I was trying to think of, but I was like Infected Mushroom and Pendulum were like my two favorites, like before I even got into going to events really, and then, you know, got into it, got into dubstep because I was big in 2010, you know what I mean? Castle Resco was like the big thing.
Oh, so yeah.
That's when I was like super into that too, and then kind of started seeing more like the, you know, progressive house stuff.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because like your sound to me sounds like super underground, like kind of less, like definitely like not a lot of EDM influence in there. So how did that?
So
like,
actually,
happen?
It was EDC 2014. Me and my friends ended up. We walked in on like the second day EDC, and one of my friends wanted to see the Martinez Brothers. And I wasn't super into like, you know, techno and stuff like that at that time, you know what I mean? So this was a new name to me, and like we were losing it the whole set. I was like, dude, what have I been doing? You know what I mean? I was like, it was like the night where like Cascade was playing, so like my crew was like,
we're gonna go see Cascade.
Well, most of them had never been to EDC, so that's like, you know what I mean? There's like certain acts that like for your first EDC, it's like those are people you want to see if you're, you know, new to the whole thing. So I was like, dude, you can like take me out to go see Cascade, but then you take me back to this techno cave because this is where I want to stay all night, you know what I mean?
Awesome.
And like after that, it was just like, okay, like I'm just head over heels for this, you know?
So shout out to the Martinez brothers for kind of like
big time. Like I just never heard like grooves and stuff like that, and I was just fully captivated at that point. And
got it.
Yeah, I really just kind of went off the deep end from there.
Okay, when was that? Like,
EDC 2014. So
okay, so you'd been in it for a minute, and then
so it was like 4 years into like going all the Insomniac stuff. So I went to like some of the random, like once the 18, it was only 18 and up, there was like some really random underground events that me and my friends would go to that, you know, obviously it was not the best idea because it was a little scary for some moments in time, but
wait, what do you mean?
Well, it's just like I remember like there was one time where we went to this one event. Well, so we bought tickets for one event, ended up not even happening at the venue. Like some promoter ended up like selling tickets to the event that wasn't even happening. So we get to the event, we wait in this line for like an hour.
Oh, and this is like kind of like the all ages rave scene.
Well, so that's the thing. The event that we bought tickets for was like 16 and up, but the event that was actually happening was 18 plus.
Okay.
And so once we got to the door, we're like trying to hand them these tickets for this event, and the guy's like, "Oh, this promoter's trying to sell tickets to their event when I had this venue book." You know what I mean?
Oh shit.
But they end up like letting us in, and like there was just some weird characters because it was like pretty like underground, you know what I mean? Like, but there was like people, there was like randomly be like people that are like sitting next to us, they're like, I'm trying to hide from the cops and stuff like that. It's like, dude, don't get me involved, you know what I mean? And then eventually like ended up like getting shut down because the cops knew that there's people under 18 there, and so it was like 3 a.m. we get shut down. We're like having to wait in San Bernardino for like our friend's mom to come pick us up, you know what I mean? It's like not ideal situations, you know what I mean? Like obviously it was there was some fun to be had, but you know, like looking back, it was like we probably could have made some better decisions there, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely done, you know, my fair share of the all ages San Bernardino rave back in my day.
Yeah,
and
so you know.
the vibes can be a sketch. And yeah, to your point, I remember driving out to one and it not being there and being like, whoa, what happened?
Exactly.
What happened?
But it's like, you know, you're out like what, $5-10 because some it's like all right, like, you know, not the end of the world,
but, and
know,
the drive
like,
there, right?
Exactly. Never fun to drive into San Bernardino.
Well, apparently like that shit is popping more than it ever has, and like in a good way. I feel like it's probably less sketch. I've definitely had people on where I guess there's some Airbnb. I got to go check it out.
Oh, interesting.
Have you they call it like NOS Airbnb?
Oh, I've heard of this actually. Yeah, I saw videos of this.
Yeah, and they throw parties
actually.
there
Yeah,
whenever
like,
something going on.
It's like outdoors, like in between houses,
it's like a house,
or something like that. Yeah, super random.
And it's super smart. Shout out to Novocaine, who I think throws a lot of parties there. But super smart. They're like, oh, we'll set up our own party at this Airbnb spot, and as people are leaving, Wonderland or whatever Insomniac thing, they'll just head over.
Super smart.
Super cool. And it seems like, so San Bernardino, because of the National Orange Show, has always been kind of like an epicenter of
exactly.
like a satellite of rave from LA. But I feel like, post-COVID, it's even gotten more so where the production value of like those parties that I see like at that Airbnb are like crazy.
Yeah, I was seeing videos too. It was like lasers and lights.
Yeah, lasers and shit.
Like a house,
like
off a patio or something like that.
Yeah, they're like DJing on top of the roof of the house, and they have lights and shit like set up behind them with lasers, like crazy.
Yeah, way cool.
Shout out.
That's
actually that raised a question for me. Like in terms of Coalesce, like do you guys do any like visuals and shit, or is it?
So that's for like the first up until 2019, I was basically doing everything myself. Okay. So like a lot of the like afterthoughts like that was not. I would be too. It's kind of on my own because since I was on my own, I wasn't necessarily keeping it organized on my own as well. I was just kind of taking care of what needed to be taken care of as it came up. You know what I mean? Like for the first one, like I didn't even think about porta potties until like my friend was like, oh yeah, like my stepdad works in sanitation. Like this is like a legit health hazard if you don't get porta potties. And it was like, okay. So it was like, 2 weeks before I'm scrambling to like rent porta potties, you know what I mean?
How long ago did that come into play, right?
Well, that was the first Coalesce.
Oh, the first, you already had porta potties like out the gate. Okay.
Yeah. So like, there's just like, like more and more like, so by the second year, there was someone that wanted to build a stage, like I had mentioned. I basically, went from just the easy up to being like, okay, we can't just have an easy up, you know what I mean? That's not a party. That's just, like
it's a tent.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So it went from like, okay, now we need to do the infrastructure, you know what I mean? And then that was the year where we set up shade, but didn't have the DJs under the shade. And then it was like the next year, it's like, okay, now we need to make sure it's like DJ equipment, everything's under this shade structure.
So what does it look like now? Like,
so this last one, my buddy Milo, who I mentioned, they had actually bought a shade structure themselves that they had set up. So we lucked out where we didn't have to, like, as the separate from like the sound, basically as like Coalesce, we didn't necessarily have to do as much build this year, which was super cool. We just basically had to build the DJ booth, which I think Josh mentioned, like all the girls, Lucy, Regina, Callie, all them like doing.
Oh yeah, like they made it happen. Yeah, they made it happen.
So it was like, for us, it was just taking all that and putting it together. You know what I mean? Which was super simple. Like our buddy Justin, shout out Justin, who's the carpenter. He had everything already like pre-made, so where it was just screwing it in and it was done. So going from slowly everything disconnected to now where we had a full shade structure. They had a tarp that they had to lay it on top of before they set it up to not get it dirty, so we were able to throw the tarp over it to make sure it was rain proof. We actually this year for the first time we had this girl come out to do visuals, which was super cool. She ended up projecting visuals. There was like one little white strip that was on the shade structure, so she kind of just hit that white strip with some visuals, which was a first for us. But then like in the past, like the year before that was like the first year where we really had lights, and like I had basically set up all these like solar powered Christmas lights, and like I had these other like flashing lights and stuff like that, and then like some people would bring like par cans and we kind of just set it up all randomly, so first year to have, and then like a laser or something like that, you know what I mean?
Oh, lasers too, dude.
Well, it was my dad ended up buying me this like laser that was like from like American DJ. It's like a $200 laser, you know what I mean?
But
it's still like red and green, but yeah, it makes a difference for sure.
I mean, I feel like Renegade stuff, like it's hard to do visuals production, especially like if you're not on private land, right? Because you don't want to be like too conspicuous.
Yeah, exactly.
And even if you are on private land, like unless you're doing like a Desert Hearts thing, it's hard to like have like real like visuals infrastructure. So I mean,
yeah,
it's awesome.
Especially with how I was, like I had to worry about other things before that. You know what I mean? Like there'd be years where like I would be struggling to lock down a sound system until the last minute, or like, you know what I mean? Like there was some other factors that would play into, not doing the extra things that we could do now. So that's why it's like, I'm super, super grateful for the team we have now. After the 2019 to 2020 was like when we all got together, and it was like, okay, let's like establish a team, because like I had a bunch of friends that were coming up to me and being like, dude, you just need to tell us what to do, you know what I mean? And like I didn't want to, I always wanted to, like my priority was being a friend over being a boss, and I didn't want to like start telling people what to do and then them growing resentment towards me just because like I'm just trying to do something and make something happen, and you know what I mean? Because obviously it's not my intention. Like I hated being bossed around in the first place. Like a lot of what I do is like trying to break from like some standards, because like a lot of things with the industry, like I just hate it so much, you know what I mean? Like there shouldn't be these standards for certain things how they are, but yeah, I'm also learning that sometimes you can't really break away from it.
Yeah, you got to toe the line, right? Between like, oh, I just want this to be like positive vibes and community, and like we're just making this happen. But also, nothing's going to happen if somebody doesn't like kind of keep everyone on track.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. It's like there's only so much that you can kind of break away from the standard before the standard kind of starts, pawing you and telling you what you need to do. So
like, do you feel like nowadays, like how much of the decision making do you feel like falls on your shoulders versus like you can outsource it or delegate?
Luckily, other people? I mean, at this point, so like I don't like to make executive decisions on my own at this point with the team, and like there's some things where like I'm kind of like I fought for it just because.
And the team's like 24 people, right? I think that's what Josh told me.
It's somewhere. It's upwards of like 15 to 20 at least. Yeah, I can't think off the top of my head, but. Yeah, it's basically like there's some things that like I'll be kind of stubborn about just because it's like either a moral thing or like, you know what I mean? Like I would just, it's like a lot of things, it's like the golden rule, you want to treat others the way you want to be treated. And so like some things like I'm a little hesitant about just because I've been on the other side of it, and I'm, it's not something I like to do or like be, witnessing or, you know what I mean, experiencing. So
in your time having to do this, like what has been some of the more like difficult decisions that you've had to like delegate or just to like think through?
Like big time, like the lineup is like my big like thing at this point. Like we do mix submissions, and so I'm the one who has to listen to every single. Oh shit!
Because I say like 54 people on the lineup or whatever, 50 plus people. You're listening to 50 mixes.
Oh my gosh!
Or you must be listening to more to get to that 50.
More than 50, yeah, easily. Like this last year, we ended up having like I think like 20 to 30 people submit like on the last day. You know what I mean? And it's like okay, like basically with the submissions for like. The idea is like we want people who want to play, like, you know what I mean, reaching out to us and trying to play. We don't really reach out to people as much, being like bugging them like, hey, submit a mix.
Do you want to get in? Yeah.
The only people I do that with is like there's like some people that like are obviously like like have been there since the get-go. Like the You Are Here dudes, I'll bug them to be like like you guys have obviously been the property owners that like let us do it. I'm gonna bug you guys to make sure you're getting a mix in so you get a slot, because like I want to be fair with everyone like only be booking off mixes, but like, if I don't get a mix, like it doesn't feel like. Does
everyone just get an hour then, or
hour and a half?
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
Exactly.
That's like a sweet, like nice, you can work with an hour and a half.
100%. Yeah. I feel like for me personally too, like when I was starting off, you know what I mean? Like 2 hours was like, bro, like I'm really dragging this out, having a hard time. Like, especially like, it was more so just like the last 30 minutes too, like an hour is like, feels really quick too, you know what I mean? So
yeah, an hour will go by like, 2 hours. I feel you. You're like,
sometimes you kind of reach in like,
okay, I didn't bring enough music.
What's in my back pocket right now, so like, the hour and a half I feel like is a good, like, especially if like, cause a lot of the time, like some of these people are bedroom DJs, you know what I mean, and like some of them have never touched CDJs, and they're used to like their synced up controllers on their laptop, you know what I mean. So
I've been
I don't want to give them
there.
like 2 hours and
yeah.
then like them just train wreck and we're just like waiting for it to be over. You know what I mean? So I feel like the hour and a half is kind of the perfect.
But how do you even get through, you know, let's say you're listening to like 100 mixes to get to like 50, like what does that process even look like?
We open up mix submissions usually in June, and I basically will take every submission that I get, upload it privately to SoundCloud, and then I've been post-pandemic, I've just been doing Instacart and Uber Eats, so I'm just driving in my car most of the days, so I'm able to just listen to it in my car, and then I bring my wireless headphones so I can just listen while I'm shopping, you know what I mean?
Got it.
Yeah, I just make a playlist of everyone's submissions and listen to them over and over. I literally like barely don't.
Really? So like you're actually like paying attention too. It's not just like, let me skim through this shit. And like,
I never skimmed through mixes. Wow. Like there was like a couple like at the end where when I got like 20, 30 of them that I kind of skipped through. And that was just because like I heard one genre at the beginning and I was like, okay, this is what we're looking for. And so I started skipping and I was like, okay, like they just aren't playing the music we're looking for. But
got it.
Everyone else, it's like I'm really like paying attention to one, what music you're playing, to like your transitions, like all that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? Like,
dude, that's crazy impressive, man. Like, I mean, I feel like that's major dedication.
It's a lot,
especially like it's like random people you don't know, but you're actually like, you know, putting in the time to.
There's a part of me that's been debating if that's gonna be the move moving forward, just because it is a lot of work. You know what I mean? Like. And there's a lot of people that I'd like to get on, but they don't necessarily have the time to be recording the mixes too as well. You know what I mean? So there's a discussion to be had there, you know what I mean? But yeah, going through all those mixes, having to narrow it down, it starts coming down to, you know, like there's a lot of people that, you know, obviously are very, very talented. That was part of the reason why I started Coalesce in the first place. I just knew too many talented people, you know, so it starts coming down to like, you know, there is the talented people, and then there's some people that like maybe don't get the opportunity that like seem like they deserve it, you know what I mean? Or maybe there's someone that's like, you know, obviously like crushing it, but like they don't really like, they've never been to a Coalesce show, like they don't even follow you, something like that, you know what I mean? They're just like, oh, I just want the DJ gig like last minute, you know what I mean? There's a lot of factors that play into it, like past the music. Obviously the music's gonna be the first thing they look at, you know what I mean? But then it's also what role you play in the community as well kind of plays into it as well. And then once again, it comes down to if you want to play. So like all those people that are submitting, you know, last minute, it's like, did you really want to play, or did you just like,
there's a contest,
you know what I mean? So like there's a lot of factors that play into the booking, which makes it really difficult. You know, I've actually like thought about breaking it down into like a whole sheet where I can pass it off to other people, so it's not just on me, you know what I mean? And like have kind of like a scorecard of like, oh, how original is this music? Like, how well is the transitions? You know, how much does this stand out? You know what I mean?
Oh man, I mean that's even more work. Like you would actually have a scorecard.
Well, the
like
thing
check
is
through.
if I could do that, then it's not on my own though, and that's kind of like the intention behind that. Is like, hopefully, I'm not the only one listening to this music, and all these executives is just.
So it sounds like up to this point though, like you're the curator in chief, like in terms of like who's making it on the lineup.
Big time.
Okay, and then how do you navigate in terms of, because you probably want to play as well, right? I'm sure like if I were in your shoes, it would be like I would be looking forward to like, you know, playing a set at my own party. So like how do you figure out like where to place yourself?
I actually personally, I don't like to take like the more primetime slots. So I like to leave them for other people. Like the first like 3 years, it was like my first Coalesce, I played like one of the first like 2 slots or something like that, you know what I mean? Like
which is like when the light is still out.
But yeah, it's like the sun was going down, like there was like barely anyone there, you know what I mean? People are still arriving, like, so I was just like, I'm just gonna get it out of the way so all the DJs that are coming can play it when there's actually people here, you know what I mean? And then the second year, I think I played New Year's Day, like the set after sunrise. So like by that time, like usually like the people that have been like partying all night, they'll kind of hang around. But there's a lot of people, since it's like the party's over at noon, they like start packing up and getting out of there. You know what I mean? And then the third year, I played like usually like around like 4 to 6, like right before the sun comes up is like the coldest point of the day because of, you know, thermal lag, the least amount of time where the sun's kind of heating up the land, you know what I mean? So around 4 a.m. on the first day, it was like my set time, you know what I mean? Like first day, but no one's there.
So you're definitely not like basking in the glory. You're kind of like,
I've never wanted to, like, it's like as much as like it's been my party, you know what I mean? Like, well, I don't want to say that because like more recently, like now that we have a team, like, I've always told people it's our party as much as like I was doing everything for like the first 3 years, you know what I mean? Like I was always like, okay, like whatever we all contribute to it, it's like, you know, that's what we're all experiencing. And like, obviously like that didn't work out as well as I hoped it was, because like I'd end up doing everything, most of the work, you know what I mean? But, like now it's, you know, paying off. We have the team, you know, like there's like responsibilities are delegated, more hands make less work, you know what I mean? So
yeah, like so over the years, have you found that there's a preferred slot that you enjoy playing?
I usually, I mean, like so the last 2 Coalesces I've played Friday or the first night. Okay. So like it's like more of a prime time slot, but I still play the first night knowing that there's going to be the least amount of people there, basically. Got it. You know what I mean?
Wait, actually, I don't know. So you open up the party 3 days up to New Year's, or
yeah?
Okay, so it ends New Year's Day.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Which this year it's supposed to be Friday, Saturday, Sunday, which I'm really looking forward to. So that's going to be super exciting, but.
Yeah, so I mean, it's only, you know, April now. Like, are you already starting to plan for 22?
We just had a meeting. Was it last week? Maybe it was 2 weeks ago. Just kind of talking about things moving forward. You know what I mean? I think next month is where we're really gonna sit down and kind of discuss New Year's more so. But we're kind of trying to figure out what we're doing throughout the year at this point, you know what I mean, leading up to it as far as, you know, fundraising. We might do...
do you do parties like leading up to it?
Yeah, it's like a lot of our parties, like, it used to be like, since like everything was donation based, you know what I mean? It was like the DJ sets were also kind of like donated to an extent, you know what I mean? Because we didn't have, I mean, if I'm losing $1,000, I don't have money to pay the DJs, unfortunately. But that was like the donation base. It was like... way I looked at it was like I was trying to have a gift for the community, you know what I mean? Like even if I was losing it, it was like this community's given so much to me that I want to give back to it in this sense, you know what I mean? But I kind of lost track of your question. What was the question again?
Just in terms of like, what other events or planning do you have to do like leading in the lead up?
Basically where I was going with that was, since I couldn't pay DJs for New Year's necessarily, we would do a bunch of the club takeovers where we would get paid, you know.
Okay, so you're doing that. Okay.
I would get like DJs that were playing consistently to get these club gigs so we can get paid, you know what I mean?
Gotcha.
So we would like have like a 4-way split between 3 DJs, so like each DJ gets paid and then one portion goes towards the Coalesce debt, you know what I mean? And that was kind of the only way we were kind of making money in a sense, you know what I mean? Since we were losing money every New Year's, so it was like, okay, like let's kind of recoup it and make sure the DJs that deserve it are getting paid, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and like what does marketing look like for you guys? Like, do you even do any of that? Like,
so luckily Josh's girlfriend Caroline,
that's right, you mentioned that.
She absolutely crushes it. Shout out Caroline. She's she's actually at Coachella right now working it for D-Lab.
Yeah, that's right, he mentioned that.
Yeah, but she eventually took over before 2019. Like it was like I was still like really hesitant about asking my friends for help, and like, you know what I mean, like I wanted them to like be like, oh, I want to help you out with this, rather than, you know, me being like, oh, can you please help me, you know what I mean? Right. So but eventually it got to the point where she was like, you know, obviously I do this, like, can you want me to do this? And it was like, yeah, like that would be fantastic, you know.
So she's just like running Instagram ads and stuff?
Not even ads, just we don't like, that's the whole thing too. It's like a lot of what we do is trying to be organic, you know what I mean? So like,
so just posting, just like putting out some content.
Yeah, just doing the content, you know what I mean, showing what we're doing, what we're about, you know what I mean?
I mean, yeah, your website looks awesome.
She crushed that. She absolutely crushed that website design 100%.
Yeah, like in terms of like the crew that I run with, you know, like that's been doing it for a long time. I was like, look at what they're doing, guys. Like this is like next level shit. And yeah, like all my friends have been like so impressed with like the way you guys are like presenting.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah, I would definitely like need to check it out this year, assuming I can figure out a way to stay warm the whole time.
Oh no, so we're actually hopefully there's actually talks about getting like actual heaters, like that, you know, like how they have at restaurants and stuff, with the tops and the little propane. Our buddy might have, his brother might have like a bunch of them we can bring out. So we could literally just like line the dance floor with these heaters. Like fingers crossed, not gonna, you know, fully count on it, but that's something that's in the talks right now. So
oh yeah, man,
if that's a possibility, that saves us a lot of.
Dude, desert vibes, desert sound, definitely to your point, beats like waiting in line to get into some dumb club that you're like overpaying for.
And then having to drive home afterwards,
Yeah.
paid, $60 for an Uber,
Right.
depending on where you live and the surge prices and all that fun stuff.
Yeah. There's you get FOMO if you don't go out for New Year's, but then usually when you do, it's kind of like a shitty time.
You're burning a hole in your pocket and then like not even enjoying yourself.
And like everyone else who just wants to be out is there, right? So like usually I feel like New Year's parties, the vibe is not like very like on point.
I just don't even want to be in a car, period, on New Year's, like driving
fair
anywhere.
Fair
you know
too.
what I mean? Like at any point, like
just get there a couple days before and like ride it out, right?
Yeah, no, I'd rather go to the desert and not have to. I would just sleep in my car. That's the only business in my car I'm doing.
Right. And then so like where does it go from here, man? Like what do you have in mind in terms of like the evolution? Obviously, it sounds like Coalesce has evolved a lot in the time that you've been doing it. Like, do you have like a particular vision for where it can go, or are you just kind of letting it flow and
that's kind of well. The only goal I really set for Coalesce early on was just to grow the brand bigger than myself. That was the only focus of it. I was never trying to blow up, make money,
Right.
None of that was ever in the background of my mind, It was always just like, let's do something bigger than ourselves and like, just ride the wave from it, you know what I mean? And so that's like I said, like everything, like we try and be organic. So like the growth is not necessarily something we push for, but it's just the inevitable, you know what I mean?
Got it.
So like, there's just like a lot of things that like kind of just keep ramping up, you know what I mean? Like we just had like last year we got to go up to San Francisco for Midway and like ended up like selling out their patio. Like everyone bought.
Well, you guys threw an event at the Midway in SF?
We did. We got to play their patio out there.
Got it. I mean, that venue's phenomenal.
Yeah. Well, it was outdoor. Like we ended up going to like another show indoor that weekend while we were there. But yeah, they had their patio and we ended up like selling out the patio. So that was super cool. You know what I mean? Getting to go up to SF, but that's kind of like where things are headed now. It's not necessarily like we're trying to push for this growth, but it's like the expansion, like organically.
Because like you think about Moon Tribe, right? Like people think as much about the party as they do about like that crew, like Trevor, Brandon,
exactly,
etc. So is that kind of where your mind is too, or
it's like like obviously like that was something that's like kind of I'm struggling to come up with the right word for it, but we've started to notice that like a lot of these parties, like they want to put on their crew, you know what I mean? And like for me, like that was.
I mean, even with DH, right? Everyone knows like those guys.
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of I think where we're kind of headed with it now. You know what I mean? Like I try to like put on like DJs that deserve it, you know what I mean? But at the same time, like we're doing all this work, we're working hard, we also deserve it too. And
I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with, you're creating something, you're giving something to the community. I don't think there's anything wrong with a little bit of a take of saying, like we're going to put ourselves up.
Yeah, 100%. I just, it's more of a mental thing with me where I'm holding myself back, where it's kind of I don't want to feel like I'm being selfish necessarily. You know what I mean? Because like a lot of what I was trying to do is just out of selflessness. You know what I mean? Just like let's put other people on. Like let's grow a brand bigger than me. Like I wasn't always trying to be like I'm the head of this. I was like I'd do this. But
I mean like the humility is definitely coming through, man, and it's like such positive vibes. But at the same time, like I listen to your mix, like I'm like, dude, like this dude needs to like be like delivering this more to the people. So.
Yeah, I mean that's the goal. I mean that's the other thing too. It's like as much as I don't want to. I'm not trying to blow up, but it's like I love playing for a full dance floor of people, you know what I mean? And that's all. That's more so what I'm just want to do, you know what I mean? Is just having that intimate connection between you and the crowd, Like nothing really beats that.
Well, I mean, it's so cool to kind of hear about like your ethos, and it definitely sounds like you're doing everything that you're doing for like all the right reasons in terms of wanting to build community and create kind of a positive space for people who enjoy dance music in nature, right? I mean, it's like, I don't think like me as primarily a consumer, like if I'm looking for something to participate in, right? I feel like you're like hitting all the marks.
I think intention plays a lot into your party, big time. You know what I mean? And that's a thing with Coalesce is people really noticed like the genuine like aspect of it. You know what I mean? Where we're not trying to be someone we're not. It's like we're just out here doing it. You know what I mean? Making the best of it. You know, and everyone's on that same page. Is like. We're making the best of it, you know, especially in the freezing cold, you know what I mean? You're forced to, but it's always a good time.
Well, looking forward to the gathering, but also looking forward to hearing more from the collective.
Yeah, right? Definitely.
So I guess, you know, we're coming up on time here. I always like to leave the end for, you know, my guests to plug whatever they want to plug, right? So anything you want to kind of push. Obviously, everyone should go check out the Coalesce New Year's website.
Yeah,
and
website, Instagram. We're on Twitter, SoundCloud. We've been posting all the live sets every week from.
But also check out Forestbump shit, guys.
I'm kind of cool.
Yeah, it slaps. It slaps.
But we have. June we have a takeover in SD. I unfortunately won't be there. Actually, me and my girlfriend have tickets to go see Earth, Wind, and Fire with Santana.
Dude, wow.
So,
old school vibes. Okay.
Gonna have to miss that one, but for good reasons. And then me and Josh, we're working on playing a desert party end of June. There's some people that do like a kind of Moon Tribe-esque party that they're hitting us up. But, yeah, other than that, I've
some collab.
Yeah, we're working on. I've been trying to work on music, so that's where the production's more been my focus. I've been trying to take less DJ gigs to produce, and so we're working on having a release in. I want to say June, maybe July, but I'm pretty sure it's June. My buddy Jeff, shout out Jeff from Fresh Baked, he's trying to get our crew to do like a little compilation album release. So.
Dude,
hopefully get some original music finally out into the world. So.
Dude, looking forward. And if you're a DJ out there, watch out for when they announce,
definitely.
I guess it's a contest, kind of.
It's submissions is the way we say it. Because one of our mottos used to be building through cooperation, abandoning competition. But obviously the competitiveness is kind of inevitable, so we've kind of strayed away from that motto so much. But
got it.
But yeah, I mean, like, yeah, if you're one of those bedroom DJs, you feel like you're not being heard, you know, like that's what. Dude,
low key, I might submit some shit. So.
I would love to hear it. Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Awesome. And yeah, like as always, don't forget to like and subscribe. We are growing slowly, all right? Like, I think we're like over 100 subscribers now, which is, although that's like nothing, it's a new milestone. So thank you.
That's not nothing.
Thank you. Thank you. You know, we can only go up from here. But yeah, I guess, you know, with that, until next time, folks. And thanks again, man. It was so awesome.
Appreciate it.